The Steam Next Festival is over, but for what it's worth, I have advised developers to keep their demos up, so most of these should still be available, with this massive list kicking off with Starlight Revolver, a co-op action roguelite set in an anime-inspired MMO universe, where you can team up with up to 3 friends, each choosing from distinct divers, specializing in melee, ranged, or support, delving into dreams, where combat, exploration, and chaos collides. Defeat monsters, smash environmental crystals, and collect charms and materials to craft gear between dives. There is a hub area named Nishi Island Metropolis where you can fish, take selfies, play minigames, and socialize with other players in real time, with roguelite progression, including unlocking new divers, charm combinations, and crafted weapons. It leans into nostalgic MMO elements and vibes, think MapleStory or something, while adding in the run-based roguelite action, looking absolutely gorgeous and is one of the most played demos for this event. Mecha Simul-Tactics is a fascinating entry since this is a simultaneous turn-based tactics game where all players issue commands for their customizable mechs during a planning phase and then watch the actions unfold all at the same time, blending tactics and prediction into one cohesive flow. The closest comparison which I can think of is your only move is hustle, but that is a side-scrolling fighting game, with this taking place on an isometric grid instead and supports up to 8 players in PvP or co-op. You can customize your mech's weapon loadout, parts and appearance, crafting builds with different playstyles and abilities, where the cool part is that after a match, you can watch the fights play out in real time using the anime-inspired replay system, which visually dramatizes kills, combos, and clashes. A built-in map editor and Steam Workshop integration lets you design and share custom arenas and is a no-brainer if you love giant robots like me. Arrow769 in the comments recommended Dungeon Rampage, so here it is, a fast-paced, top-down hack-and-slash dungeon crawler that brings back nostalgia, since this game was popular in the 2010s but was shut down in 2017, and now they are back with a fan of the game somehow getting the licensing rights to it after saving the source code from a kid's laptop. See the article on PC Gamer for more information, but the important thing is that Dungeon Rampage is back. You select from a colourful roster of heroes ranging from melee bruisers to range spellcasters, battling through procedurally generated dungeons filled with monsters, traps, and treasure. It is intense ARPG combat with an expensive loot pool, having weapons, pets, skins, as well as skill upgrades to customize your character. Each run escalates in intensity as you go along, culminating in a boss fight, and if you were concerned, like me, about the mobile free-to-play looking UI, according to their Kickstarter, they are reworking this as a one-time purchase, so no microtransactions, which is always a good thing. Decks of the Damned is a card-based roguelite auto-battler where you are a vampire lord having to defend your castle and go on the offense through a day-night cycle. By day, you fortify your lair, craft potions and gear, recruit vampire minions and other undead, and brace yourself for attack by the humans. By night, you lead expeditions out into the world, conquering villages, gathering resources, looting artifacts and growing your army, while attempting to shroud the land in darkness. Minions auto-attack in combat, which is affected by your deck composition and what weapons, relics, and potions are available to you, which shapes unit behaviors, synergies, and combat outcomes. Your lair and castle can be upgraded with defensive structures, including walls and towers, all as you unlock persistent upgrades, new classes, and crafting recipes for future runs, with there being multiple vampire lords to choose from and looks deeply strategic. Mech Animals is an action-packed roguelite beat-em-up where you play as tiny animal pilots which have the option to summon their powerful mechs, having to master both to tackle procedurally generated missions. You will have a choice of different mechs, from Brawler, Long Range, Mobile Fortress, and Ninja, being able to switch between the agile animal and the mech on the fly, depending on what the situation calls for. Combat emphasizes combo-driven beat-em-up brawling, with randomized weapons and upgrades, allowing you to craft a build for the run, as you attempt to take down a mega corporation and its environmentally unfriendly diesel-powered AI robot army. As with most beat-em-ups, this looks best with friends and does have co-op support, with the team comprising of animators who worked on titles like Kung Fu Panda, Mario Movie and Minions, and is said to be like Hades meets Super Mario 3D World, definitely being of interest, but the world of video games is a very different place, so here's wishing them all the best. I'm not quite sure how this game came to be, since Mars Attracts is a play on the term Mars Attacks, a sci-fi movie from 1996, and is set in the same universe, featuring the same style of big-brained alien design. But strangely enough, this is a theme park management tycoon game of all things. You are building a human zoo on the Red Planet, where instead of roller coasters or animal enclosures, your attractions are abducted humans from different eras, displayed and experimented on for the entertainment of a Martian audience. You manage park logistics by constructing enclosures based on human traits, deploying Martian tech to boost guest engagement, and organizing abduction expeditions to bring in new specimens. Each exhibit affects research output, entertainment value and income, and your staff of Martians must be balanced across roles like wranglers, scientists, and entertainers. You have to manage resources, admission pricing, and facility upgrades while expanding your zoo, also having to deal with the occasional escapee, which might start destroying your buildings, looking so weird and wonderful. A pretty fast-looking first-person shooter is JetRunner, one with a cel-shaded, almost Borderlands-looking kind of art style, adding a dose of parkour to this high-speed shooter. You fluidly wall run, vault, grapple, and blaze through intricate courses that require momentum-based traversal, shooting at targets and finding ways to shave milliseconds off your time. You'll master futuristic gadgets designed to enhance mobility and style as you tackle over 60 unique arenas and various challenge runs, with a fully voiced campaign following rookie athlete Nina White as she climbs the ranks of this gravity-defying sport turned competitive spectacle. Of course, this looks very neon white inspired, but seems to have a little bit more of a focus on the first-person parkour and looks fun. I love the 1-bit minimalist pixel art look of Boss Fight Tactics, a charming roguelite turn-based RPG where the gimmick has your party becoming the final boss fight should you be successful in a run. Rather than characters, everything is driven by items, having over 100 types that lets you move, attack, gain passives, or manipulate enemies. So even while there is visual variety in characters, that is cosmetic only. Combat plays out in classic side-on turn-based combat, with enemies telegraphing their next item-triggered move, allowing you to plan and counter accordingly. You can gain new items mid-run and even toss items to allies for combo setups, having an unlimited undo feature which encourages experimentation and learning. Or you can switch on auto battle mode to see what the built-in AI comes up with, looking visually simple but cleverly made. Abyssus is a cooperative roguelite first-person shooter, having a so-called brine punk world, which I don't really know what that means, where up to 4 players dive into the depths of an ancient sunken civilization to blast away at corrupted enemies and wield divine brine-powered weaponry. There are 64 handcrafted levels that are procedurally sequenced, so each run feels fresh, offering fast-paced, responsive gunplay fueled by elemental weapon mods and ancient tech upgrades. Choose from 8 distinct weapons, each customizable with up to 45 mods, choosing upgrades during a run to create powerful synergies. Upgrades will help, but the core aiming, shooting, and positioning of a first-person shooter is much more important, as well as teamwork in co-op, where this game has signed with publisher The Arcade Crew since we last took a look and should be huge. Undusted Letters from the Past is a tender, tactile restoration game with ASMR influence where you play as Adora, returning to her childhood home after her mother's death. You gently clean worn and dirty objects like teacups, tools, and handwritten letters using a brushing mechanic that is deeply satisfying and always under your control. Each item holds a whispered memory that is revealed as it is restored, weaving together fragmented scenes from Adora's past and family history. It is a cozy game in the sense that the tactile feel of cleaning an item is deeply relaxing, with no timer and no failure states since items never break. Instead, The focus is on the emotional narrative grounded in childhood nostalgia and moments of tension and love, coming to us from the people who worked on Coffee Talk and A Place for the Unbound, who are the experts at this kind of narrative storytelling. A very different kind of game is Flesh Made Fear, a retro-inspired survival horror game that draws upon classic PSX-era titles but with a modern twist. You navigate environments through the fixed camera, having to wrestle with tank controls, while you explore locations filled with occult experiments, nightmarish creatures, and atmospheric dread. Gameplay involves exploration, limited inventory management, puzzle solving, and scarce ammo, all hallmarks of the genre, but adds some pretty impressive looking visuals that gives the game a surreal, otherworldly feel. There are two playable characters in Natalie and Jack, each offering different health pools and inventory constraints, which is, of course, an analogue to Jill and Chris from Resident Evil, offering their own unique storylines as well. Between safe areas, you solve intricate puzzles, scavenge for essential resources, and uncover cryptic notes to piece together secrets as you work towards neutralizing a brilliant but deranged former CIA agent who is the primary antagonist, looking like it's true to form and is for fans of the genre. When I first came across Rue Valley, my mind immediately went to Disco Elysium since this looks like an isometric CRPG, but the focus isn't on traditional combat, but rather on dialogue and narrative choices, centered around the psychological state of our protagonist as he deals with a time loop. You play as Eugene Harrell, stuck reliving the same 47-minute evening in a motel where every interaction, dialogue choice, and action shapes his personality and emotional state. Rather than stats like strength or dexterity, you allocate points into axes like impulsiveness versus being calculated, or introverted versus extroverted, which unlocks traits and influences how Eugene perceives and interacts with the world, looking like a parallel to the Thought Cabinet system but is doing its own thing. Status effects like anxiety or intoxication further shifts his dialogue options, where you are piecing together memories, uncovering secrets, and triggering story events by strategically pursuing or avoiding emotional triggers, which you will learn loop after loop. Visuals lean into a comic book aesthetic, with expressive animations being published by Owlcat Games, best known for the Pathfinder and Warhammer 40k CRPGs, so they have that side of things down pat, so it's interesting to see them work with this developer on a narrative-focused entry. This next title was recommended by Johnny as a response to my email newsletter, and yes, you can reach me directly through there, where Beyond the Map is a survival action RPG set in a pristine yet hostile fantasy world where you journey across procedurally generated biomes. After a shipwreck, you awaken on an unknown landmass, having to gather resources, craft tools, and establish a base camp, adding stashes, forges, cauldrons, farms, and portals along the way. Combat is classless and flexible, so you are free to use melee strikes, ranged weapons, or elemental spellbooks to defeat wildlife and hostile creatures as you slowly build your strength and venture further out to explore bit by bit. Eventually, you will get into challenging dungeons filled with strong enemies in search of rare loot, with each victory pushing you further as you become more powerful. It has basic survival game style mechanics where resting by a fire does actually have a tangible benefit, looking rather Valheim inspired, but maybe leaning a bit more in the Diablo style action RPG direction and looks promising. The Royal Writ is a medieval roguelite deck builder where you lead a band of quirky animal warriors in lane-based tactical battles across a hand-drawn kingdom. Each card you play is a unit with movement, attack patterns, and special abilities, and when they fall in battle, they are permanently removed from your deck for the rest of the run. This loss mechanic adds tension and forces tough decisions. Do you send your best creature in to break a formation, or hold back and risk greater losses? The campaign unfolds across a branching map filled with battles, relic shops, narrative events, and upgrade points, having terrain modifiers which varies up the strategy required, and will have two distinct campaigns, one focused on internal rebellion and another introducing gunpowder, which drastically changes the strategy. It has a Balatro looking scoring system but where the units and their placement information is what drives the score, having an awesome look and is of interest. Relic is a cooperative third-person multiplayer mushroom robot Souls-like in which sentient fungo-robot hybrids explore tribal islands built around machines. You can play solo or with friends in seamless online co-op, diving into derelict foundries and ancient temples to harvest components and elemental fungi. Combat emphasizes responsive dodge, parry and block mechanics, complemented by melee weapons, bows and magic. You customize your body and upgrade your fungal abilities by looting scrap using elemental powers like fire to burn your enemies or water to heal your allies, also having gameplay altering armor to equip. Each island is packed with interconnected biomes ranging from lava fields, mangrove swamps and chasms, giving you access to traversal abilities like jump, air dash and mantling as you explore to uncover the secrets of the world. A game which is all art style is Dimwood, a minimalist roguelite deck builder rendered in stark 1-bit pixel art, where every card you play can reshape the rest of your deck. Cards are created from strings of pips, symbols representing actions like damage, block, or changing the mode of other cards, and you can manipulate these pips mid-battle to morph cards entirely, changing their function on the fly. You choose one of 3 archetypes, the Ranger, Tactician or Druid, each offering unique deck building styles and strategies as you explore the mysterious Dimwood forest, defeating enemies as you go along, and attempt to slay the beast at the heart of the forest. There will be more than 400 cards, which is a lot, and will also have 20 Descension difficulty modes, i.e. the parallel to Ascension difficulty in Slay the Spire, with the pips being the most fascinating part and is for fans of the genre. From the developer of Station to Station comes Town to City, a cozy voxel-style city builder where you begin with a small train station and gradually grow it into a bustling metropolis, set within the context of a small Mediterranean town. This looks like an expansion of ideas from their other game while retaining their gorgeous art style, with this being more fleshed out in terms of systems as you manage housing, jobs, research trees, and citizen happiness while building your town unconstrained by any grids. There will be a full campaign as well as a sandbox mode, teaching you the basics, then allowing you to go wild with your imagination. Behind its charming exterior lies a genuine economic simulation, since citizens have needs and you have to allocate workers to production and logistics, as well as to trade resources and balance the budget through taxes. It is more than just an interactive toy, which is trending in a good direction. Breakshot Hero is a physics-driven tactical RPG with essentially billets-style gameplay, having literal balls-to-the-wall action as you aim and fire ball-shaped characters off walls and obstacles to collide with enemies. It does show off a predictive trajectory when you are aiming, which might help you pull off sick trick shots, although I don't know if it is some sort of special power-up, an optional toggle, or if it is always on. Defeated enemies join your roster, and you can add them to your team, unlocking customizable skills and unique skins as you collect characters across runs. But critically, despite the almost gacha machine kind of nature to this, it strictly does not have microtransactions. While it doesn't self-describe as a roguelite, there are procedurally generated levels, and even up to 4-player co-op for multiplayer madness, having a wonderful look and looks like fun. Another game which stands out visually is Necromancer for a Week, a monster taming roguelite RPG in which you play as said Necromancer, reanimating monsters and using them over the course of 7 nights to compete in 2v2 battles against enemies. You recruit monsters from tombstones scattered across the map, teaching them new moves and passives from found tombs, with action points-based turn-based combat as the 2 monsters work together to create powerful combos. Your goal is to clear encounters and make your way back to the central Necromancer's citadel in the middle of the map each night, acquiring stronger monsters and abilities along the way, where you unlock new starter monsters after each run, which can then be chosen in the future, with the selection of blue, purple, black and green giving this a very necromancer-y look. Battlesuit Aces, not to be confused with the now cancelled competitive RTS Battle Aces, is a narrative-driven deck builder mixing card-based combat with giant mechs and character-rich storytelling, being of interest since this is made by the Battle Chef Brigade people, where that game released in 2017, so it has been a while. Captain Heathcliff and his ragtag crew are searching the galaxy for the fabled Relic suits, which are alien super weapons, with the larger goal of saving the galaxy. There is streamlined 5v5 combat, where you are deploying your pilots and their mechs on a battle line to do battle, deciding on which enemy to target and how the pilot abilities play off each other. Between missions, you manage your crew aboard the USS Zephyr, upgrading mechs, crafting mods, and navigating branching missions tied to factions, or just hang out and get to know the crew, with the overarching story being inspired by classic mecha anime and seems to give off a similar vibe. Of course, with their pedigree and history, this game looks absolutely gorgeous, so again, fans of giant robots have plenty of reasons to celebrate. A neat looking real-time strategy roguelite is Becoming Saint, where you lead a growing preacher movement across medieval Italy, aiming to convert city-states and earn your sainthood. You start small, defining your doctrine's tenets, managing followers' charisma and food, and organizing both peaceful sermons and confrontational conversion battles that target an enemy's resolve rather than their health. Strategic depth emerges as you balance resources, adjust policies to keep your followers united, and decide when diplomacy or force better serves your cause. The map is split into procedurally generated nodes featuring towns, rebel forces, resource events, and opportunities to gain or lose influence. Between missions, you recruit and upgrade unique unit types, customizing your army to align with doctrine, selecting which units would be best for the missions in front of you. It is a roguelite, so should you fall, new challenges and strategies will await in your next incarnation, with 14th century medieval Italy being a very interesting setting for a game like this and is unique in this space. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this title, but let's go with Cordot, a musical JRPG that fuses turn-based combat with rhythm game mechanics, of course looking kind of like Undertale, but also Everhood. But with more classic rhythm game segments, you play as Sam Mardot, a journalist navigating a floating city simply known as the Capital to uncover a disturbing conspiracy. Battles require you to time nodes to attack, defend, parry, or use special abilities, adding it on to classic turn-based combat and will be for rhythm game fans. Outside of combat, you explore a handcrafted pixel art world with colourful characters and animated cutscenes gradually revealing the city's dark underbelly and looks interesting. Speaking of interesting looking games, Soul Nexus has a very intentionally low fidelity hand-drawn art style and is a text-based adventure game where you explore hauntingly surreal environments in a quest for freedom. You make your way through over 150 unique rooms across 4 acts, solving puzzles, uncovering secrets, and reacting to bizarre encounters via typed commands. Yep, you heard that right. This is like Zoc, so think go north, go east, sit, use item, and so on, but generously giving you graphics mixing dark fantasy, minimalism, and philosophical undertones with a branching narrative. Each choice reshapes the story as you unravel the purpose behind each room in your attempt to escape, looking so weird and interesting. Just real quick, YouTube breaks when there are too many games, so I've created a free PDF with all the games and links to them, which you can get via the link in the description below. Monster Crown Sin Eater is a monster taming turn-based RPG in the vein of Pokemon, and critically retains a pixel art style as compared to modern Pokemon games and looks fantastic. The gimmick here is a true cross-breeding system where the child monster takes on physical attributes of the parents, resulting in over 1,000 hand-drawn sprites, which is very impressive, with a story about the protagonist protecting his family instead of the gym leader Pokemon champion structure, and looks awesome. Another job simulator title of interest is Galvatine Adventurers Guild, in which you play as the receptionist of the guild, having to verify and authenticate the claims from brief adventurers by digging into loot, maps, bestiaries, and licenses to confirm that the job was done properly. As such, there is some papers, please DNA in this, but adds a detective element where you can interact with and talk to these heroes, having to decide on whether or not to strictly follow the rules or react with compassion when an adventurer's tale strikes a chord. At night, the guild tavern opens and you oversee the cooking of monster cuisine using ingredients gathered that might buff or debuff adventurers, having an amazing art style and should be great. Troublemaker 2 Beyond Dream is an open-world action comedy beat-em-up set 2 years after the original, released in 2023, and is set in South Jayakarta, where you juggle street brawls, band ambitions, and teenage drama. Swap between two main characters in Jordan, a scrappy street brawler and musician, and Budi, an MMA fighter, each having their own group of friends, Jordan with the band Beyond Dream, and Budi with his crew from high school seen in the original game. Both of these characters have their own combos, weapon moves, special techniques, and finishers, looking like Yakuza-style third-person brawling action. In between combat, you are free to explore the city, helping the locals, taking part in mini-games like fishing or rhythm game segments, and unlocking shops, gear, and items. The overarching plot weaves in friendship, drama, love, rivalry, and adventure as these two groups of teenagers pursue their dreams, looking very ambitious, coming to us from a small team of less than 20 located in Jakarta, Indonesia, telling a tale that they are uniquely suited to, so if interested, try their free demo and wishlist the game. I've had my eye on Guray for a little while since this hand-drawn action platformer looks awesome, being largely monochrome but has strategic use of colour, where you battle mythical kami in a surreal castle that bridges worlds. You choose the order in which you face powerful bosses, where each victory lets you acquire their power, adding new abilities like a dash, the ability to heal, a more powerful weapon, and so on, but when you do so, this strengthens all other bosses. This means that the first boss that you defeat in one playthrough can become the endgame boss if you leave it for last, so every fight has multiple difficulty levels, adding replayability. It will have fast and unforgiving combat, with a beautifully detailed world drawing upon Japanese mythology. Defeated bosses will also become a part of your character to the extent that you can converse with them as you explore, adding personality to the game, and looks absolutely fantastic. Rhythm Storm is an amazing looking bullet heaven roguelite built around vector graphics and rhythmic combat. You pilot an auto-aiming vehicle through waves of enemies and massive swarms, chaining upgrades from weapons and power-up drops to customize your build on the fly. Everything in this world, except for your ship, moves to the beat, creating a kinetic audio-visual experience that pulses throughout each run, adding the rhythm to Rhythm Storm, and is beautifully done. In some ways, this might be particle effects the game, but the technical aspect means that there are no textures used here, and while I'm not exactly sure what that means on a technical level, it does look fantastic, with the developer recommending a 1440p or higher monitor and a 120Hz refresh rate for the optimal viewing experience, although in 1080-60 it looks awesome as well. I love the contrasting use of blue and orange, with the main game also having an upgrade tree with nearly 250 choices, with quality of life elements like a blueprint system which allows you to select and save a set of upgrades which can be used in later runs, looking and feeling like some sort of modern follow-up to Geometry Wars, which should get you excited. Rumbrell is a dark puzzle platformer that places you in a desolate world where you awaken with no memories and must piece together your identity by navigating decaying structures and shifting between parallel realities via strange magenta puddles. Environmental puzzles require you to traverse both versions of each area to activate mechanisms or create platforms, with changes in one reality bleeding over into the other to open new paths. There will be hidden collectibles scattered throughout the world, which reveals fragments of the story, looking very Limbo-like and could be cool. Speed Demons 2 is an arcade highway racing game where you dive into explosive high-speed action amid chaotic traffic, playing as a member of the Demons, a highway racing gang, or the Enforcers, vigilantes determined to stop the demons. Weave through traffic and hit the gas to either win the race or to avoid getting caught, having 3 camera angles in straight down, high angle chase and low angle chase, which gives it quite a unique look as compared to most other racing games, emphasizing the thrill of speed, backed by a pulse-pounding soundtrack. You can unlock a vast roster of vehicles and race types with 10 gameplay modes such as Race, Checkpoint, Escape, Pursuit, Takedown, Rampage, Rally, Slalom, Scratchless, and Rush Hour, with over 500 races spread across the various chapters. The original Speed Demons 1 is a hit on mobile, impressive for a premium title, and looks to make the transition to PC beautifully, and is a must-play for racing game fans. An action-adventure RPG with an interesting color palette is Athea the Wrath of a Fairy, having 2 main characters, a reluctant sword-wielding guardian and an arcane monk, who must synchronize their martial and magical prowess to cleanse their land from a corrupting void. You explore ruined temples and shrine-style dungeons where the environmental puzzles require switching between the 2 characters to manipulate mechanisms, activate spirit-linked switches, and free trapped specters. Combat blends action with strategic depth, mixing melee and ranged attacks, healing, utility spells, and more in order to defeat void monsters and challenging bosses. The partnership dynamic shapes both puzzles and combat, perhaps drawing inspiration from classic Zelda games, with the giant corrupted beasts looking very impressive and just looks neat. Fish Cube is a surreal speed fishing adventure where your mission is simple. Hook a powerful fish and let it propel your boat, racing through dream-like waters by reeling in the fish to steer the vessel. The game centers on a unique dual rod mechanic where, according to them, 2 hands means 2 fishing rods, and while I'm pretty sure that's not how it works in real life, you're using 1 rod to steer your fish engine while the other catches additional fish. Each time attack level throws you into increasingly bizarre aquatic landscapes packed with strange creatures that behave unpredictably, demanding fast reflexes and precise timing to avoid being overpowered, mixing racing intensity with unconventional fishing with that throwback low-poly look, and is very indie games. Bang Bang Barrage is a multiplayer shooter where you team up with friends sitting on a boat, battling Cthulhu's minions, having to master the recoil-based mechanic if you want to be successful. Aiming and firing allows you to dodge bullets as well, so you need to be spatially aware of where your boat is relative to enemies and their projectiles, looking challenging in solo play but ramps up the chaos when you play with up to 3 other players in local or online co-op. You will get a choice of power-ups to select from, upgrading your vessel and weapons during a session, crafting loadouts that suit your playstyle, with new traits, upgrades and challenges in every run, wrapped up with a simple but adorable art style. This developer has been hard at work, with the current version being Demo 2.0, so they have been adding and updating the demo version itself, and it's certainly worth a try. I love my Metroidvanias, which is why Trash Heart got my attention, and in digging deeper, I realized that this is from the developer of Trash Quest from 2021, which is a neat little one of these, so this follow-up looks to be a bigger, better, and more refined version of that game. Set on a junk-filled planet ruled by the Trash Lord, you play as a raccoon scavenger, battling your way through in order to stop this powerful entity. uncover powerful artifacts that expand your traversal and combat abilities while confronting hordes of malfunctioning robots, adding a dose of precision platforming as well as bosses to battle. Movement includes jumps, dashes and more, along with weapon variety which gives you plenty of options, having an interconnected map, Metroidvania style, and simply looks like a good one of these. I'm pretty sure that Deas Mantle is a play on the word dismantle, and fittingly is a survival sandbox RPG where you explore infinite procedurally generated worlds to craft, build, fight and uncover ancient secrets, all while seeking a way home. As such, this follows in the footsteps of games like Terraria, Don't Starve or Crashlands, but with a pleasant hand-drawn art style, where you know the drill by now, starts with basic resource gathering of wood, ore and plants, and eventually progress up the tech tree that lets you craft gear, weapons, furniture, automation lines and magical factories. Yes, you heard that right, there is a fantasy and magic element here, not being constrained by real life, with real-time active combat and multiple biomes to explore as well. The base building system looks impressive, allowing you to design and customize your own base, looking like a well-made one of these, although I wonder if there is a definitive end, which rolls credits with the whole going home thing, so I guess we'll have to see. Another bottom of screen idle game of interest is Not Monday Cafe, a cozy cafe management title where you run a charming eatery and welcome adorable animal customers. You grow ingredients on your farm plots, harvest crops and then process them into dishes using a variety of kitchen appliances that you unlock and upgrade to expand your menu. During the workday, your staff handles cooking, serving and cleanup, while you fine-tune the layout and decor of your cafe to boost customer satisfaction and to maximize tips. As you level up your kitchen and expand your farming area, you unlock new recipes and decorative options, allowing you to personalize your shop, all wrapped up with adorable pixel art and just looks like a great entry in this space. One of the most anticipated city builders is Pompei the Legacy, a generational sim title where you lead a Roman family in the shadow of the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, overseeing reconstruction of the city post-disaster and spans over 200 in-game years. You are constructing road networks, aqueducts, resource pipelines and production facilities, clustering complementary buildings together to optimize efficiency and to unlock passive bonuses. Trade routes connect you to Mediterranean markets, making diplomacy and market timing crucial as you navigate volatile resource demands. Research both technological advancements and philosophical policies, balancing infrastructure upgrades with social welfare improvements like education, religion, and civic services. Random events includes earthquakes, plagues, fires, and volcanic tremors, which demand rapid response, testing your emergency preparedness and disaster resilience. All decisions tie into imperial relationships where you can interact with the emperors of the day, looking like a fantastic entry in this genre. A game which is all art style is Gumbo, an open world survival crafting adventure with an art style reminiscent of Cuphead and looks great. Set in a whimsical world, you are gathering resources, building and exploring as you attempt to uncover the secrets of this realm. Similarly, you begin by harvesting materials like wood and stone, using these to craft tools, weapons and utility gear, or to construct structures ranging from shelters to homesteads and farms. As you push beyond the initial forest and dungeons, you encounter increasingly dangerous creatures, elite enemies and giant bosses that demand strategic combat, mixing melee weapons, magical powers and crafted items. It will also have a day-night cycle, handcrafted dungeons and a variety of biomes, as well as co-op support, looking so good and could be huge. Silver Days is a retro-inspired JRPG set in a frozen, fractured world where you guide a cast of teenagers on an emotional journey to reunite with friends and mend reality. Collect hundreds of cards through exploration, combat and limited trading, constructing a party deck focused on elemental combos and strategic depth. Battles unfold in thoughtful, turn-based encounters where timing, deck customization and exploiting enemy weaknesses matter. The world comprises of colourful biomes, from icy ruins to surreal dreamscapes, filled with hidden lore and fragmented story pieces that deepen character arcs as you progress. Each character has their own coming-of-age narrative, intertwining personal growth with combat rules and party synergy, and looks like a heartfelt, emotional tale. A pretty cool looking survival crafting title is Mistaken, being a side-scrolling entry, so think Terraria, but with more of a horror influence. The world has been overrun by an eldritch mist, and the remnants of humanity struggle against horrifying creatures where you play as such a person, having to explore procedurally generated landscapes to gather resources essential for crafting and fortifying your refuge. Scavenge for randomized weapons, armor, and gear, each with unique stats and effects, while building your shelter and setting up defenses as you prepare for the onslaught. Experiment with Cartifacts, magical trading cards that combine to yield powerful combat and survival bonuses. Combat is tense and strategic, pitting you against grotesque monsters, with of course there also being boss fights, including a worm-like boss quite like the Eater of Worlds. And of course, according to the narrator, there is another way to pronounce this title in Mistaken, which is clever. I covered Oko The Exile when it was first revealed, primarily of course due to the pixel art, and it's a side-scrolling action platformer where you play as a horned demon warrior on a quest through the demon realm of Kotala to fulfill an ancient vow, to defeat the demon lord and to link his world to the heavens. Every stomp, launch, bounce and deflect adds to the combo-focused combat, which rewards timing and precision, taking on an assortment of enemies. In some drop-dead gorgeous environments, you're able to activate focus mode, letting you consume heart energy to break shields and deal devastating blows, introducing a risk-reward system and depth to the combat. Between exploration, there is a central hub area named the Old Throne, where you trade goods and engage with NPCs, offering a brief respite from the intense action. Upgrade your stats and unlock abilities as you gradually take down the various demon lords under the main bad guy, looking so good, which makes me excited. Switching gears, we have the throwback polygonal look of Devil Spire Falls, which might not be for everyone, but it appears to be hiding quite the interesting open world action RPG, where you forge your own story in a world tainted by an accursed fog. After the first Devil Spire collapses, create your own unique character, selecting from a variety of races, classes, origins, stats, skills, perks, gear, and magic that explore this dark fantasy landscape filled with villages, dungeons, bandit camps, and hidden zones that adapt to your every decision. Combat demands adaptability, with over 18 types of weapons from swords to muskets, dozens of combat skills and perks, and a magic system capable of over 100 effect combinations. Every action has real consequences, since no character is sacred and presumably can be killed, so your choices carry weight. Gameplay is not just limited to combat, with the trailer opening with a shot of first-person farming, but also includes fishing, crafting, building your own home, hunting monsters, taming beasts, and more. Dungeons and the overworld are connected, letting you sneak past challenges, brute force your way through, or to use the environment to your advantage, looking insanely ambitious, which might make up for the visual style and is certainly a curiosity. This next title is just fun to say, since Meat Engine definitely evokes what they are going for, a brutal first-person boomer shooter set in a surreal sci-fi horror landscape where you play as a bioweapon seeking to eliminate a corrupted planetary intelligence known as the Monarch, inspired by classic boomer shooters like Quake and Doom, as well as more modern entries like Dusk and Scorn. This delivers fast-paced combat across 8 distinctive bio-organically themed levels. You build a living arsenal of 8 brutal weapons, ranging from bone rifles to a bone whip thing that kind of looks like a spine, adding to the frantic action. Interestingly, the Meat Engine itself is a planet-sized sentient biomass which travels across the universe seeking living matter to consume, but when it does, it absorbs them imperfectly, resulting in mutation, spawning these creatures that battle through the endless fleshy corridors, tunnels, and grotesque chambers of said Meat Engine. looking like boomer shooter goodness. Chrono Gear Warden of Time is an awesome looking pixel art 2D action platformer where you play as said Time Warden, having to repair fractured timelines, slash and dash your way through handcrafted levels using fluid sword combat and time warping abilities to defeat your enemies. You have time-related special abilities like using haste to speed up movement and combat, or stasis to slow enemies down and to solve puzzles. The game combines intense action with exploration, with a central hub area linking to the different missions, which itself evolves and includes some familiar faces from the Hololive universe, since yes, this is indeed a VTuber game, and to be honest, Hololive titles have been pretty good, even more so in this, since the developer of Freedom Planet, Galaxy Trail, is working on this game, where of course the pixel art is a draw and looks excellent as well. For something very different, we have The Oily Depths, a tense first-person horror game set in a cramped submarine, plunge deep beneath the sea as you drill for oil under the orders of a faceless corporation. You must juggle submarine controls, pulling levers, flipping switches, and activating machinery while navigating the vessel via dim monitors and gauges, all under constant threat since the company will cut off your oxygen supply if your quota is not met. To throw a wrench into the works, you have to deal with equipment failure, fires, flooding, and more, forcing you to make split-second decisions that can cost you air or your life, with the content warning on the store page saying depictions of suffocating and drowning and looks very intense. I was so happy to stumble upon Aero Machina since this is a high-altitude, low-poly 3D platformer Metroidvania starring an android built from aircraft who must soar, fight and explore to uncover why humanity vanished. Of course, you might be able to see the pseudo-regalia in this game, with this perhaps having slightly more modern graphics, mixing platforming, flight as well as intense combat. Slash through your enemies using a propeller blade, then unlock jet wing abilities that open new zones and change how you move and fight through this world. Weapons are upgradable and each new tool lets you exploit enemy weaknesses or gives you new mobility options, with non-linear exploration, hiding secret areas, gear upgrades, and both allies and rivals to discover, all while you piece together the story. It looks pretty sick as well, being a throwback to the PSX era, with the game planning to include New Game Plus, Speedrun and Randomizer modes, which provides replayability. But they don't quite make games like this anymore, so I'm glad that an indie developer is doing so. One of my most anticipated titles is Outrider Marco, a pixel art 2D action-adventure game in which you are a courier delivering packages to the gods. Combat is interesting, having shoot 'em up segments as well as jumping, having to first slime enemies with a red nectar, slowing their movement, and then finishing them off using weapons, stakes, and elixirs. Defeating creatures and completing orders earns you divine blessing talismans that provides buffs such as increased speed or item drops. As you fulfill delivery missions, you gather seal stems to fill your apprentice notes and unlock further mysteries of the realm as you work towards getting back to your own world, battling through an assortment of Mononoke or vengeful spirits, where the timing is pretty much perfect for this game since it releases very soon. I first caught wind of this game on social media, and Crimson Capes immediately impressed me, which I suppose is technically pixel art but rendered in 3D, giving it an awesome look. This is a brutal side-scrolling action RPG where you play as a member of the Crimson Capes, a witch hunting guild that is under the command of the left hand of the king, i.e. the more undesirable but necessary activities that the establishment cannot be seen to be behind. Interestingly, there appears to be multiple heroes which you can play as, each with their own playstyle and skill tree, with deliberate tactical combat with feints, spinning cuts and powerful finishers, while wielding both steel and sorcery. As you explore the world and take on dangerous missions, of course there's a greater conspiracy at play here which you need to uncover, also having co-op PvE support as well as PvP, where you invade another player's game as a Death Blade, seeming to be Dark Souls inspired while still doing its own thing. A title that has potential to be on a Game of the Year list somewhere and is pretty much a no-brainer to check out is Windswept, a charming 2D precision platformer starring two adorable protagonists and a duck and a turtle, swept away by a storm and have to find their way home. People have likened this to Donkey Kong Country, with the two characters having unique abilities, and the developer has been showing off some devious Celeste-level platforming challenges on social media, and I can easily see this being as, if not more popular than that game. Rusty Rangers is a sci-fi roguelite platformer with Metroidvania elements, mixing fast-paced action with character variety and deep build experimentation across procedurally generated runs. Choose from unique rangers, each with different starting weapons and movement options, then dive into run and gun action, where to be honest, it doesn't really have a strong gimmick, but the pixel art looks great and just looks like a well-made one of these. Cozy Organizer is a wholesome, cozy game, obviously, as indicated in the title, in which you are organizing and sorting out a variety of items, placing and arranging them in a number of locations, from stacking items in the pantry, organizing your bookshelf, or designing your dream closet. It can be satisfying to clean and organize, so if you are detail-oriented like that, I'm pretty sure that this game will be of interest. I'm sure that the screenshots and videos coming out from this game will be great, especially due to the wonderful art style, and while largely a free-form, relaxing kind of experience, it will have fun, low-pressure organizing tasks which unlocks new items, themes and layouts, so there's a bit more structure to the game, and if interested, try the free demo on Steam and wishlist the game. This next title seems like a lawsuit waiting to happen, since Escape from Duckov sure sounds like a parody version of Escape from Tarkov, featuring adorable ducks in a military context, but is a top-down looter extraction shooter instead. You are exploring the world of Duckov, battling enemies either head-on or sneaking around to get the jump on them, looting supplies and resources, and having to bring it back to your base if you want to keep them. Once back, use these materials to craft weapons and upgrades, including armories, gyms, medical stations, and a nest, which then gives you more benefits for your next expedition. Following a trend of games in this direction, whose closest comparison would be something like Zero Civet but ducks and looks cool. Witchy Business is a cozy job sim crafting game that places you behind the counter of a magical potion shop, blending garden farming, interactive brewing puzzles, and customer care into a satisfying daily routine. Gather herbs and oddities from your garden and the nearby swamp, then brew potions using mini-games, which requires timing and selecting the correct ingredients, serve customers properly, and use spells to stop shoplifters before they steal your goods. Customize your shop's layout, counters, and upgrade the brewing station, with there, of course, being cat companions as well, looking absolutely wonderful due to the art style and theme, and is a must-play for cozy game fans. Mind Diver is a first-person detective murder mystery game where you dive into the mind ocean of the main character Lena, which has been fractured, in order to rebuild memories and to solve this twisted case. Swim through surreal 3D scanned environments and examine memory fragments that each hide missing clues, ranging from objects to visuals or ambient dialogue, which you must piece together to deduce the truth. Every restored memory unlocks deeper layers tied to Lena and her missing partner Sebastian, weaving a tragic romance into the central mystery. This is an observational puzzle game, so there are no combat elements, instead focusing purely on the puzzles and narrative as you uncover the story, having some trippy looking visuals as well, and looks like a fascinating entry. A cozy puzzle platformer is Bluma, which stars a magical chinchilla who uses a mystical bloom bowl to create platforms out of flowers and has to restore the elemental realms. Journey through 4 themed areas: Crystal, Wind, Bubble, and Volcano, each offering unique physics-based puzzles, as you link up these realms by planting portal seeds in a central greenhouse to reopen pathways. There are optional collectibles like secret butterflies which will unlock hidden endings, looking like a delight, primarily because of the design of the main character, which just looks so cute. Tolom is a roguelite deck builder with a fantastic art style in which you play as a soul imprisoned in a bell, journeying through a dark fantasy world. Equip one of several suits that define your playstyle from the start, then explore open semi-procedurally generated maps with the now classic Slay the Spire style energy-based turn-based combat system using cards. You are free to explore and choose which node is of interest to do, strategizing on enemies or bosses to face, or if it is time to go to the shop to get new cards. Of course, I have to commend the art since it looks absolutely fantastic, having some rightfully creepy enemy designs since you are fighting back the miasma after all and will be for fans of the genre. The next 4-player co-op survival horror game of interest is Mimesis, one which is centered on tension, trust and betrayal in a world where cursed rain turns survivors into shape-shifting doppelgangers. Forage for fuel, medical supplies and food during daylight as you navigate open-world environments and repair a tram which serves as your only safe refuge. The rain returns at night, where players caught out in the open might get transformed into a mimic, an enemy that perfectly mimics your voice patterns, movements and behavior. You must manage resource runs by day and defend the tram by night, all while questioning whether your teammates are who they claim to be, where I suppose the quality of this game will heavily depend on the underlying tech and how good it is at imitating player behavior and in a more meta way what players will do to trick the AI creating these clones and has quickly shot up the charts in terms of popularity. I have a number of spooky titles in this list where we only have a teaser for Gloomy Eyes so far, but it looks very Nightmare Before Christmas and is a narrative puzzle adventure that sees a human girl and a zombie boy working together and has a neat art style. Developer Wild Arts Games is like the embodiment of this meme, with their first release on Steam being the spooky Hell Town, which then switched over to the ultra cute Born of Bread, and now they are back to horror with Kaput Mortm. This is a retro-inspired first-person survival horror adventure game set in the 16th century alchemist's tower, featuring resource scarcity, puzzles and atmospheric dread, but most interestingly, has a unique control scheme. The default controller makes you feel more vulnerable, in which you are controlling the camera and your hands separately, making your way through the dim corridors and arcane chambers, scavenging for herbs, solving environmental puzzles, and trying to avoid monstrous alchemical creations. You can choose to hide or fight, with the control scheme adding to the tension, with the developers describing this as slow burn horror, with everything being very deliberate feeling and is quite a different kind of horror game and looks intriguing. Another creepy title, but in a more interesting way, is Dead Station Files, the self-described hardcore tactical roguelite puzzle game, which has a creepy setup, but critically is experienced entirely through an emergency EVA-COM terminal that records the last missions of doomed space station crew members. You can load up the saved logs of these people, telling the tale from their perspective, with every puzzle being solvable as you avoid deadly threats and manage limited resources, all while a looming catastrophe bears down on you and is a different kind of roguelite. Rogue Factory is a factory building action roguelite where you are designing automated spell casting systems, surviving waves of monsters, and growing stronger with every run. Build alchemical factories outfitted with conveyors, generators, totems and auto-cast modules to produce and launch spells at oncoming hordes, having a Vampire Survivors style component but with the addition of factory building automation. My Card is Better Than Your Card is a sticker-based roguelite deck builder that just looks so good, turning you into the king or queen of the playground by crafting your own cards with a playful sticker mechanic. Use hundreds of colourful stickers, each with their own effect, to create unique cards that you use in tug-of-war duels against quirky rivals. Every sticker adds ability or cost, so balancing power and affordability becomes central to your strategy. Between matches, participate in treasure hunts, trade cards, shop for rare stickers, and recycle old cards to evolve your library over a run. Combat plays out in turn-based card battles, where you and your opponent take turns to play cards, triggering their effects, which affects the tug-of-war meter at the top, representing how impressed your opponent is with how cool your creations can be. Of course, there are boss battles as well, which require a degree of strategy, but my god, just look at the art style, capturing a little bit of what it feels like to be a kid again. Thanks to those of you who commented the last time I brought up a game with this kind of art style, where we have decided on Thixel art as basically pixel art with thicker outlines, which is something that Oko uses, a minimalist tower defense strategy game where you're free to place towers to defend your crystal and have to cast spells to repel waves of orcs. There are various tower types like freeze, crossbow, and capture towers, each with unique purposes, and can be further enhanced with runes to boost performance. Interestingly, you're able to nudge existing towers when placing down new ones. Not quite sure how the physics works with that, but it's magic I suppose, which could have interesting strategy implications. There are a variety of maps, biomes, and even random events like night raids which change the rules of the game, with enemies being able to attack your towers and will not just stupidly walk in a lane, and as a tower defense fan, this is certainly of interest. The developer of this game shared it with me on Twitter, and I have to say, the Whims of the Gods looks like an amazing city builder, looking to be themed around Aztec or Mayan cultures, but they're not exactly going for historical accuracy, I think. Interestingly, this is a co-op title for 2 players, although single player is available, where you can join forces with a friend to shape this ancient civilization under the watchful gaze of capricious deities. Gather food, hunt wildlife, process materials, and build production chains across a handcrafted map that evolves as you unlock new structures. You need to balance workers' housing, food supply, and morale, while responding to divine events from a mystical calendar, including plagues, earthquakes, bountiful seasons, or volcano warnings, which require strategic adaptation. There is a combat element as your armies are activated to defend against waves of enemies emerging from the mountains, having auto-battler combat, but you will be able to use special abilities to turn the tide of battle, invoke divine blessings, or risk the wrath of the gods by failing key decisions. Where I'm interested to learn more about how co-op works, if there are any special interactions, or if it is basically the same city building game but with a shared resource pool and with 2 cursors on screen, but this looks good and will be for fans of the genre. There are 2 games with this title on Steam, so make sure you're looking at the right one, in which Into the Inferno is a 2D Zelda or Alundra style action-adventure game where Hero is dragged into the underworld after turning down an offer from the devil and has to fight his way out. This is not a roguelite, although the developers do mention semi-randomized levels where you are exploring and battling enemies, collecting soul crystals in order to access the boss room. You will find key items like a boomerang, bow and arrows, as well as angel wings, in addition to your sword, with that sword slashing animation looking very familiar but in a good way. The action looks fantastic as you are smoothly rolling around, dodging enemy attacks, avoiding traps and chopping up bushes, looking like it would be a perfect fit for the SNES. I'm not quite sure how long in duration this game will be, since it doesn't seem to have the village and exploration parts, although that is briefly teased at the end of this trailer, so we'll have to see, but definitely a curiosity of note. One look at Book of Abominations, and I'm pretty sure that this is my jam, a creature collecting turn-based RPG, yes, but one which draws inspiration from eldritch horror. Set on an island where a cursed tomb has unleashed nightmarish creatures, you play as an adventurer with the ability to capture and use these creatures, building a bestiary as you collect these and use them in combat. Explore the island's eerie, moody environments, from abandoned mansions to hidden caves, uncovering secrets used in puzzles, or unlocking powerful summons. Battles are quick and strategic, focusing on snappy, turn-based combat, where you need to use buffs, debuffs, status effects, and team composition to your advantage. There are also charms to collect and equip, which further alter your strategy, with parts of exploration being gated by certain creatures or abilities. These creatures can also evolve, and perhaps, thankfully, is not a roguelite, having a whole island to explore and seems to be Pokemon-like, just without the whole gym leader structure, with, of course, the pixel art drawing me in, so I'm definitely down for this. Speaking of pixel art, Abyssal Blade is a boss rush action game where you have to survive each encounter with only one hit point as you battle bosses that embody the stages of grief. Face 5 bosses: Denial, Anger, Bargaining, Depression, and Acceptance, each designed with MMORPG style mechanics like cast bars, telegraphed area attacks, and precisely timed attack patterns. You execute light and heavy attacks to build a mana gauge, which, when full, can unleash a brief burst window to deal rapid, high damage attacks. Movement, positioning, and cooldown control are critical, as one strike means game over, with each boss requiring pattern recognition and split-second decisions. The game emphasizes purity of skill over gear progression, so there are no stats or loot, only reflexes and your own improving skill level, being kind of Titan Souls adjacent, but where you need to deal more than one hit, looking intense and should be great. For a little break, how about Village Tale, a relaxing bottom-of-screen idle game where you guide a fledgling settlement towards becoming a thriving trading hub, all within the confines of your desktop. Construct buildings and place decorative elements to unlock new industries and grow your population while balancing production, crafting, and trade requests from nearby villagers. The game runs in real time, even when minimized, so your village continues to function while you are away and progress never stalls. Customize everything from building style to villager appearance as you improve happiness and reputation through trade deals, with classic city building elements like optimizing the layout, introducing new production chains, and responding to the ever-changing orders of your partners. But it is without time pressure or combat and looks very chill. Back to something more intense in Von Galen Castle Beyond Blood, a side-scrolling survival horror action platformer with Metroidvania elements, where our heroine explores Mayhem Island and a ruined castle to find her brother and to uncover corporate corruption. There is real-time combat against enemies and gigantic bosses where you use an evolving arsenal of weapons, but in typical survival horror game fashion, you need to conserve ammo by using melee weapons where you can. Solve item-based puzzles using keys and cranks, with branching paths and backtracking shortcuts showing the Metroidvania influence. Health and resource management means that you need to be cautious when engaging the enemy, with great enemy designs and hand-drawn art as well. It self-describes as Super Metroid crossed with Resident Evil 4, so expectations are high, but they might yet pull this off since it does look great. I'm not quite sure how this title is supposed to be pronounced, but ooh, sure sounds like fun, being a charming puzzle platformer of interest that stars a bomb-building caterpillar making its way through the world through creative explosions. You are using bombs not for combat but for mobility, launching yourself up across gaps, clearing obstacles, activating switches, and uncovering hidden paths. There's no text or dialogue, so you need to puzzle your way around, with each mechanic being revealed visually and intuitively through play and experimentation. Levels are handcrafted with subtle mysteries and multiple solutions, so you need to poke and prod at this, with the main game being planned for a 2 to 3 hour playthrough, but will be rich with puzzles and secrets, and there might be more to this game than meets the eye. Perhaps Animal well-like, if I dare to say so, so certainly give the demo a try. Another cozy bottom-of-screen idle game is Whimside, adding a creature collection twist, again being your constant companion while you work, study, or relax. Capture breed and hybridize wimblings to discover new procedurally generated species and unlock whimsical biomes filled with secrets. Decorate your personal space with charming items that grow alongside your collection, and create a peaceful location to retreat to if things get too hectic. The pixel art is bright and expressive, while creature interactions feel warm and dynamic, with no pressure, no timers, and no forced progression, looking like an awesome cozy game, and I do love me some creature collecting. One of the main reasons as to why I wanted to make this video is that I have to share Thicia's Story with you, a turn-based, party-based roguelite dungeon crawler that just looks awesome. This throws you into a retro-styled labyrinth as the bearer of the brand, leading your party of adventurers through dangerous, procedurally generated levels with first-person exploration that old-school dungeon crawlers are known for. You can recruit and swap between companions, each with unique skills, and teach them abilities through a skill-sharing system that deepens your strategic combinations. Combat is classic turn-based gameplay where timing and exploiting enemy weaknesses matter. Within the labyrinth, there are diverse biomes like buried forests and underwater cities, each hiding artifacts or friendly NPCs, but there is permadeath, so you need to start over if you fail, carrying over your knowledge with you into the next attempt. I absolutely love the look of this game, with very interesting choices of colour palettes, and it's old school cool but modern. An amazing looking action roguelite is Cinderia, one that centers on fast-paced, combo-focused combat with flexible build options. Hack, slash, and blast through dark fantasy environments, facing foes like Black Knights and evil mages, using your active and passive abilities along with Relic synergies. Choose different embers and skill sets to tailor your playstyle, then layer in relics and item pickups to augment your build within a run. Enemy attacks are telegraphed, so if you react quickly enough, you might just be able to get out of the way, with this also having a Chinese title translated to Country of Ashes, which is very apt for the setting. There is a permanent meta progression skill tree between runs, looking like a pretty sick entry and should be good. Speaking of sick visuals, while this game is full of faceless stickman types, there's something to the overall presentation of The Horde Wants You Dead, a top-down co-op shooter where up to 4 players face endless waves of enemies in intense skirmishes. Despite the swarms of enemies, this is not exactly a Vampire Survivors style title, since you appear to be much more limited in the number of projectiles that you can fire out, even if there is the roguelite style choice between 3 upgrades. So what is old is new again, so try this with friends. Morbid Metal is a third-person hack-and-slash roguelite that just looks cool, where you can shapeshift in real time between 4 distinct characters, each with their own moveset, passive traits, and signature abilities. Combat focuses on chaining together fast-paced attacks, dodges, and ability combos while swapping between characters mid-fight. Each run features semi-procedural levels built from handcrafted environments across multiple biome types, with tougher elites and bosses requiring use of the full roster, with this, interestingly, getting picked up by Ubisoft, who is publishing the game, which might mark a change in strategy from the French giant. LAN Party Adventures is a nostalgic single-player simulation adventure set in the early 2000s, self-described as a mix between PC building simulator, Blueprints, and Stranger Things, adding a narrative element and mystery to the first-person job simulator. You play as a teen, organizing and setting up LAN parties across town, but something strange is going on, which involves your missing friend Pedro, looking pretty unique, so give the demo a go. Sizzle and Stack is a fast-paced restaurant management card game where you stack ingredients, cook dishes, explore recipes, and serve customers, climbing the culinary ladder as you make dishes that will impress high-profile gourmets. Inspired by stacked lands, stacking cards on top of each other causes them to interact, such as egg plus milk on a frying pan, resulting in an omelette, so you need to manage your play space with the multitude of ingredients and to serve the customers what they want. There are known recipes, but you can experiment to discover new ones with various upgrades for your tools, like a higher quality knife which prepares ingredients more quickly. You use earned coins to purchase themed booster packs, which gives you a wider range of ingredients, with the standard mode requiring you to hit a certain target per day, but there's also a peaceful mode for a more chill experience. It looks absolutely wonderful, and it's a clever twist on this style of game, releasing a demo for the Steam Next Festival, so you can try it right now via the link in the description below. A newly announced title which went straight into the Next Festival is Ball Axe Pit, a brick-breaking roguelite that mixes ricochet-based combat with persistent base-building progression. Each run starts by selecting a hero and diving into a monster-filled arena where bouncing orbs are launched to destroy enemies and terrain in real time. Orbs can be caught, redirected, or launched with charge shots for more precision, and over 60 orb types can be found, upgraded and fused mid-run to trigger effects like chain lightning, explosive rebounds, or terrain modification. Between runs, collect resources and return to New Babylon, a surface hub area where you can construct buildings that unlock new heroes, add passive boosts, and automate resource generation. Each run is semi-procedurally generated, featuring themed biomes such as haunted forests, volcanic tunnels, and frozen ruins, all filled with hazards, mini-bosses, and elite mobs that scale in difficulty, where I thought that I've seen it all in the indie brick breaker space, but yet this has blown everything else that attempted to do this out of the water, and I'm a big fan of this. An intense first-person shooter is ferocious, dropping you on a remote, uncharted island where every fight demands quick thinking, adaptability, and resource management as you make your way across it and have to survive. Of course, the main draw here are the dinosaur enemies, but in addition to those, you're also facing off against armed mercenaries, towering mechs, and oversized insects. Enemy AI is clever and unpredictable, where humans will take cover, call reinforcements, use tactical movement, and react dynamically to your actions, while dinosaurs, on the other hand, are just a force of nature. You can bait dinos into fights, use stealth takedowns, or go all out with explosives and firearms, creating emergent Turok meets Tarkov kind of scenarios. Outside of combat, you're scrounging for weapon parts and crafting essentials like ammo and mods to customize your weapons, which degrade over time and must be maintained. All of this as you explore the varied biomes and locations of the island, giving me a little bit of early Far Cry vibes. A cozy job simulator title is Ship Inc., where you play as an employee in a shipping business, having to receive incoming orders, select appropriate box sizes, organize items to prevent damage, pack them, seal them, and dispatch parcels correctly, all under a ticking clock that rewards efficiency without sacrificing care. Successful orders earns you money, which you can use to purchase upgrades to make you better at your job, with increasingly complex orders as the game progresses, but looks to have a very satisfying gameplay loop of order arrival, sort, pack, ship, optimize, and looks cozy. The original Deadly Days from 2018 was a decently popular action strategy roguelite set in a zombie apocalypse, and the developers are back with Deadly Days Road Trip, this time looking more like a Vampire Survivor style action roguelite. You are on a deadly road trip, trying to make it from point A to B, having to deal with the hordes of zombies along the way, where in addition to the swarm-focused combat, it adds inventory Tetris, interestingly enough, to give the game a different feel. Blast through procedurally generated stages in bullet heaven style, piling up XP, with item placement in your backpack affecting their effectiveness. Consoles, batteries, chainsaws, and yo-yos all snap into place, which enhance reload, damage, crowd control, or mobility, adding a more strategic layer to the upgrade system. Between stops, you chart your route across a branching node-based map, encountering merchants, search events, and rare survivors to recruit, which will affect your chances of success, all wrapped up with a fantastic pixel art look as well. When Clover Pit was first announced, the developers released the demo at the same time, and it immediately shot up the charts in terms of popularity. being an announcement strategy worth considering if you're an indie game developer, and was described as Balatro meets Luck Be a Landlord with a dose of buckshot roulette. This gambling-adjacent title traps you inside a crumbling cell with only a corrupted slot machine with the ever-looming threat of a trapdoor beneath your feet, making you pull the lever just one more time. You are attempting to pay off your debt by gambling, having to beat a target score per round, otherwise you fall to, presumably, your death. Every spin consumes one of your limited chances, and finishing with fewer spins grants tickets used to unlock upgrades for future attempts. Between spins, you manage an inventory where items and charms interact based on placement, with effects that influence payouts, spin costs, or resource generation. Choices pile up quickly as you weigh short-term safety against long-term debt reduction, and the slot machine itself mutates with new symbols, risks, and multipliers the deeper you go. Nailing the psychological tricks that slot machines use to keep you hooked with the visual and audio feedback, and mark my words, this will be huge when it releases. A very good looking action roguelite is Morsels, one which adds a creature collecting twist where you play as a sewer dwelling mouse transformed by a magical sentient fat bug into your first monstrous ally, collectively known as Morsels. It is classic 3/4 view action roguelite twin stick combat where you fight against the cat overlords while freeing new morsels mid-run and switching between them in real time to exploit unique abilities, resist status effects, or unleash powerful buffs. Each captured morsel brings distinct strengths and quirks that shape your strategy on the fly. The pixel art world blends cute and grotesque with flickering sewer pipes and some fantastic designs, although the CRT-looking scan lines might be a hit or miss depending on your preferences. Swapping between creatures rather than weapons is an interesting twist on this genre, with it initially having a February 2025 release window, so I guess with the participation in this event, release will be sooner rather than later. A survival city builder with physics is All Will Fall, where you lead a castaway colony in a submerged world, wrestling with physics-driven construction and rising tides. You place beams, platforms, ladders, and supports, knowing that every structural addition introduces stress that can collapse your precarious settlement. Gather drifting resources and assign workers, sailors, and engineers whose placement affects logistics and efficiency. Manage resources, not only including building materials, but also food, water, and shelter for your people, and make decisions on random events that demand tough choices, from scavenging shipwrecks and fighting off rogue seagulls. Given the state of the world, building upwards is one solution, but of course, that comes with associated physics that you need to consider, with it having the expected city building elements such as researching technology, upgrading zones and districts, while still having to juggle morale and survival. The demo version, as part of the Next Fest, is being termed as an open beta, so if interested, do check it out and give the developers some feedback. One of the most beloved action roguelites is getting a sequel in Undermine 2, which, to be honest, does look very similar, even having an almost identical visual style, and is a dungeon crawler with a mining theme. Guide a humble peasant into procedurally generated mines filled with traps, enemies, and powerful relics. Hack and slash through dynamic rooms using a variety of weapons, while picking up relics and arcana to create varied builds in each run. Inventory slots limit your choices, but reward clever combinations, and relics synergize in ways that lets you pivot tactics mid-run. There are also branching paths, side quests from rescued NPCs, mini-boss challenges, and hidden zones, creating plenty of optional risk-reward scenarios. Of course, there is meta progression here in between runs, centered around gold collected, with the original having one of the best gameplay loops, with this sequel looking like an expanded version of Undermine 1, seeming to have more of a co-op focus, which might not be the best strategy, since people do play solo, but you can check out the demo to find out for yourself. Developer Tokana Interactive crushed it right out of the park with their first game, Romantic, which did get the attention of YouTube channel Kuskasat, working together to make Star Bird, starring the familiar bird characters that people who watch their videos will be familiar with. This turns you into the mastermind behind a colony of star-lit avian engineers building orbital mining networks across floating rocks in space. Deploy rovers to scan unique asteroid chunks for metals, ice, or quirky elements, then place extractors, factories, conveyors, and pipes to process materials and feed it to your orbiting base. Energy supply has to be steady, with asteroid mining being an interesting theme which people are actually attempting in real life, so maybe this will be ahead of its time, and given the pedigree, looks like a pretty chill experience. A very ambitious looking action roguelite is Raiders of Black Veil, one which combines classic 3/4 view camera angle, action roguelite combat, but also MOBA-inspired hero characters and extraction elements, also having co-op support for up to 3 players so you can play with friends. You are the rebels and your goal is to raid a massive corporation's factory, grab loot, and get out before things go sideways. Pick a champion such as mage, assassin, priest, guardian, monk, druid, warrior, or warlock and customize your build with over 300 perks plus dual perk combos that lets your squad enhance each other's strengths. Fight through enemy waves in procedurally generated factory zones filled with traps, mini-bosses, and main biome bosses, get loot and gear, as well as other resources like bandages, keys, souvenirs, and currency, which can then be used back at base for powerful upgrades. Extraction elements kick in when you must decide whether to push deeper for rare items or bail with what you have under increasing enemy pressure, with inventory space limitations forcing you to choose what to keep, having a fantastic look as well and is one to try. If Kaizen, a factory story, looked familiar to you, but you did not recognize the developer's name, that is because Coincidence is formed from ex-Zachtronics developers after that company shut down, with founder Zach Barth being a part of this team, formed since they felt that the Zachtronics brand was only associated with puzzle games and they wanted to expand into other creative products such as card games and educational games. This, however, is a very Zachtronics-style puzzle game set in 1986 Japan, where you play as a rookie industrial engineer tasked with designing and refining mechanical assembly lines for consumer electronics. Start by laying out conveyors and robotic arms that snap components into place. Scrub time back and forth to identify mistakes and tweak spacing or sequencing for peak efficiency. Experimenting to streamline production and to reduce bottlenecks through iterative tweaks. Unlock tech upgrades and minigames like a pachinko-style solitaire break room to reward creative diversion, all as you learn the Japanese manufacturing philosophy of Kaizen or continual improvement, and is a must-play for puzzle game fans. Metal Eden is a high-intensity sci-fi shooter where you play as Asuka, an android soldier tearing through the collapsing interiors of Mobius, an orbital city turned into a deadly trap, in order to rescue the cores of citizens, but this is as good as a suicide mission. Use wall running, air dashing, grapple hooks and bounce pads to stay airborne while chaining together kills with rifles, explosive launchers and beam weapons. Fight through open-ended combat arenas that demands aggression and constant repositioning as enemy waves spawn in, where you're able to extract their energy cores, which is then turned into a resource for you. The high mobility, almost parkour-inspired moveset contributes to the sense of speed in this game, having some sick looking sci-fi weapons as well as a great look, of course reminding me of Ghost Runner but without a sword. A cozy fantasy farming sim is Dragon Shelter, where you have to restore your grandfather's overgrown farm with the help of charming dragons that you befriend and care for. Grow crops and manage resources to build cozy shelters, then tend to the dragons who can help with activities such as chopping wood, cooking meals, growing crops, or even repairing buildings. Explore different biomes to gather magical ingredients and forge bonds through cooking, which will reveal the dragons' personalities. Dragons respond to your care through playful interactions and unlocks new powers as trust grows. which will be helpful as you have to restore joy to a nearby town, uncover heartwarming stories, and forge community connections as you help the villagers looking to nail all the elements expected of a farming game, but with added dragons, so of course I'm down for this. Dead as Disco delivers a neon-infused beat-em-up rhythm experience where every punch and combo syncs with the music. Play as Charlie Disco, a deceased drummer, as he battles through thumping environments, chaining attacks, counters, dodges, and finishes timed to the music's flow. Master your martial arts rhythm with optional parry cues and charge moves that heighten score and style on your quest to confront your ex-band members who have turned into villainous idols, having to uncover the truth as to who killed Disco in the first place. There will also be a wave-based arena survival mode where the goal is to last as long as possible, and in rhythm game fashion, you will be able to import your own MP3s in this mode to customize your experience. As such, this does have some Hi-Fi Rush vibes fused with classic beat-em-ups and looks like a must-play for rhythm game fans. Going back to the more relaxing end of things is Islanders New Shores, the sequel to perhaps the game that kicked off the relaxing city builder trend, but do note that developer Grizzly Games sold the IP to the Thunderful Group, and this is being made by their internal team, The Station, best known for SteamWorld Build. This is a relaxing and minimalist city builder that emphasizes thoughtful placement, where you have to cluster compatible structures together to get more points in order to get new buildings so that you can continue to play. New here are powerful boons mid-run for unique power-ups like duplicating or replacing structures with the core high-score chase mode like the original, as well as an endless stress-free sandbox mode. I love the original, since it was relatively low stakes, since even if you did not meet the score and have to start over, it's pleasant enough to keep you playing, with it, of course, having photo mode so you can create some very impressive looking wallpapers if you wanted to, and looks absolutely fantastic. Another awesome looking roguelite first person shooter is Moros Protocol, set aboard the Orpheus, a derelict space warship crawling with terrifying enemies and filled with relentless combat encounters. Navigate twisting corridors and blood-soaked chambers armed with shotguns, katanas, flamethrowers, and sci-fi rifles, while blasting through enemies using augments to reshape your fighting style. This is a roguelite, so there is some degree of procedural generation where you need to navigate the shifting corridors while scavenging for weapons and upgrades, with this having intense boss fights presented in a way similar to a Souls-like title. Death triggers a reset, but grants unlocks and meta progression that persists between runs, looking to nail that one more run gameplay loop, where one of the main draws to me is the art style, since it looks awesome, being a throwback but with modern flair, reminding me of Proteus and looks awesome. One of the more interesting looking live sim titles is Discounty, where instead of a charming farm, you are in charge of a quaint supermarket in the harbour town of Blomkast, where everything from shelf arrangement to customer satisfaction shapes the town's mood. Stock shelves, clean the aisles, and ring up customers in real time while managing product restocks and storage space. Rearrange layouts to guide foot traffic, place decorations to influence shopper behavior, and negotiate deals with local producers to unlock specialty goods. However, things are not as they seem in the town, with talks of a broken community where you can befriend or alienate townsfolk based on your actions, with hidden secrets that will affect your reputation. Shortages or surpluses influence both profits and town sentiment, having core upgrade progression systems like being able to build larger aisles, develop new product lines, and improve the overall aesthetics of your shop, having some wonderful pixel art, and is something different in this space. One of the most interesting rhythm games in development is Unbeatable, being of note since their free prologue demo, Unbeatable White Label, is one of the best rated free entries on Steam, with this being a rhythm adventure game set in a world where music is outlawed. It tells the tale of Beat and her band playing criminal gigs in a vibrant anime punk world. Navigate open environments at your own pace, talking to NPCs, uncovering side missions, punching cops, running away, smashing crates for loot, and creating new songs between performances. This then switches into rhythm game sequences where you only need 2 buttons, up and down, to match notes on upper and lower tracks through high pressure concerts or street brawls, having a lot more visual variety as compared to a simple note highway, and just looks so good. Baby Steps, aka Quap 3D, is the latest abomination of a game from developer Bennett Foddy and friends, probably the Rage game creator, now best known for Getting Over It, but this looks to be something special. Play as Nate, an unemployed fail son who gets sucked into a TV, who suddenly finds purpose in traversing mist-shrouded paths by putting one foot in front of the other, guide his legs by managing left-right foot placement against simulated physics, so each step requires balance as you navigate rocky slopes and uneven terrain. Missteps causes Nate to tumble, possibly resulting in minutes if not hours of lost progress, with some very strange characters to interact with as well. Some people have, hilariously, compared this to Death Stranding, and I suppose the core movement idea is there, but this is about the journey across instead of linking up the world or whatever, and is peak Bennett Foddy. Secretly, one of the biggest ongoing games is Foxhole, a real-time, massively multiplayer war game where every soldier in the game is an actual real-life player, maintaining about 2,000 concurrent players at a time, and the developers are expanding upon their offerings with Anvil Empires. Similarly, this is a massively multiplayer title, but in a medieval context, where thousands of players build sprawling settlements and wage siege warfare in a persistent online world, collaborate to construct farms, smithies, and fortresses, or go solo to craft tools and trade with others before marching into massive, real-time melee battles, establish supply lines, logistic camps, and coordinate siege equipment like ladders, battering rams, and trebuchets to support your faction, fight in epic confrontations with thousands of players, which requires coordination and teamwork, either on the front lines or even back at base, gathering resources, raising livestock, and producing weapons of war. There's a larger meta strategy layer of taking over territory with the constant ebb and flow as factions exchange victories, where there isn't quite anything like this on the market other than Foxhole, which makes this of interest. The next game from developer Heart Machine is Possessors, a side-scrolling action platformer which might not be a Metroidvania since that is not mentioned anywhere on their Steam page, set in a flooded interdimensional mega city where you play as Luca and her demon counterpart Rem, forced to coexist or perish, navigate handcrafted environments with tight platforming and combo-driven ground and air attacks as you slash through surreal enemies and bosses in rhythmic, juggle-heavy combat. Unlock movement abilities like wall jumps, dashes, grapples, and parries to explore hidden paths and environmental puzzles across the interconnected cityscape, described as a sprawl, but where there are multiple paths to take. I'm not quite sure what the final form this game will take, but given that it's Heart Machine, of course this will be of interest. Where it is interesting to note that they made Hyperlight Drifter, Solar Ash, Hyperlight Breaker, and now this, which are all in different genres instead of doubling down on any particular one, so I guess the developers do like their variety. One of my most anticipated titles is Bits and Bops, a Rhythm Heaven style rhythm minigame collection that features fantastic art and animations, having over 20 bite-sized challenges, original music, and snappy controls. These require timing your taps, swipes, and holds to react to the colourful audio-visual cues, while cute characters and playful scenarios keep each moment fresh. Simple 2-button mechanics lets anyone jump in, but perfect runs demand precision as levels scale in complexity and speed. It is also being built on a custom game engine, which is supposed to have lightning-fast responsiveness, so input lag should not be an issue here. Looking absolutely wonderful and is what I love to see from an indie developer. The psychological survival horror title Hostin looks awesome, having an interesting mix of pixel art and 3D set in an eerie 1990s Polish town consumed by the creeping corruption which has mutated its inhabitants and environments. The game switches between multiple camera angles from behind the back, third-person camera, side-on, isometric and more, really looking so impressive and is highly hyped for good reason. So if you love this genre, do give the demo a try. Shattered Divinities is an excellent looking pixel art Metroidvania set in a post-Ragnarok world fractured by divine calamities. Play as a lone adventurer who awakens in the corrupted temple ruins and explores an interconnected map featuring over a dozen themed regions, with abilities such as Phase Warp for teleporters, Sky Step for aerial moves, Bulwark for defensive counters, Assault for rapid attacks, and summoning allied creatures, looking so good and is a must-play for fans of the genre. The next title from the developer of Streets of Rage 4 is Absolem, their own original IP that retains their gorgeous hand-drawn art style and is a roguelite beat-em-up set in a fractured fantasy world. Select unique heroes and explore procedurally generated zones with branching paths and roguelite randomization, mixing rapid melee combos, ranged gunfire, and special abilities, where to my knowledge, there's yet to be an excellent roguelite beat-em-up, so this has the potential to occupy that spot. The next title from developer White Owls, headed up by notable Japanese developer Swery65, best known for Deadly Premonition, but is also a collaboration with Suda51 of No More Heroes and Killer 7 fame, with this roguelite platformer being titled Hotel Barcelona. This is a side-scrolling title set in a cursed hotel, where each floor is themed after a different horror film style. Progress through 7 floors, each ending in a boss fight against a serial killer. Combat includes melee and ranged weapons such as katanas, chainsaws and shotguns, with each weapon offering different reach, speed and damage effects. A key mechanic is the slasher phantom system, where dying in the game creates a replayable phantom or echo that mimics previous movements and attacks, fighting alongside the future version of the character in a manner similar to Super Time Force Ultra. Up to 4 phantoms can be active at once, allowing layered offense and defense across attempts. Blood from enemies fills a skull gauge, which, when full, enables the Carnival Awakening, a temporary power surge that boosts damage and movement. Random modifiers affect each run, including altered player size, lighting effects and enemy speed, creating variation and forcing adaptation, with it also having up to 3-player co-op support and just users style. One of the most impressive looking factory builders is Dawn Apart, one that adds in colony sim elements and has you setting up an outpost on an alien planet, lead settlers to mine resources, automate production and survive hostile conditions while uncovering corporate and environmental conflicts. You do have a choice in the narrative of running the colony under a corporate mandate or to incite rebellion against the organization exploiting the world. Gameplay mechanics includes fully destructible voxel terrain, real-time mining, automated conveyor belts, machines, and modular factory placement, and terraforming allows you to reshape land to optimize layouts and resource flow. Settlers, each with defined roles, follow schedules for harvesting, production and maintenance, and require food, medicine and shelter to remain productive. Of course, your mining activities will attract the attention of alien creatures which will attack, so you need to defend using fortifications and turrets, looking like the next big thing in this space, so fans of the genre do check out the demo. Another huge title is Pioneer, one which might be not so indie, coming to us from a mid-sized Serbian developer, so of course head in with some caution since the information around the team is not so readily available, and hopefully this will not be the next the day before. This places you in an open world post-apocalyptic Soviet-era island where survival and exploration are central to progression. It blends MMO and single-player campaign elements, offering both PvE missions and PvP zones, including high-stakes extraction areas known as the Shadowlands. Core mechanics involves grounded first-person combat, with realistic bullet physics, recoil, and weapon customization through the use of workbenches with weapons including rifles, sidearms, and melee tools, but also anomaly powered gear. You have to manage hunger and rest while gathering resources like raw materials, artifacts, and anomaly energy to craft gear and equipment as you explore huge procedurally generated zones, going into bunkers, fighting off mutant creatures, bandits, and more. There are also NPC factions and missions which affect your reputation with them, along with your own base camp to construct and upgrade, looking like some sort of mix between Stalker and Escape from Tarkov, and has potential. The follow-up to the very popular shopkeeping narrative sim Strange Horticulture is named Strange Antiquities, placing you in Undermere once again, but this time as the steward of an occult curiosity shop, where you have to identify and catalogue arcane artifacts for clients with cryptic requests instead of running a plant store. The core gameplay revolves around examining items, referencing illustrated tomes, and determining artifact uses accurately, since mistakes can have meaningful consequences affecting your reputation. Venture into key locations guided by hand-drawn maps to recover new curios, solving environmental puzzles, and gathering clues to progress. Use these items to help or hinder townsfolk, affecting the greater world around you, which does result in multiple possible endings. Of course, you also have a cat companion which you can pet, and given the pedigree, will be a title of note. An all-action boomer shooter is Darkenstein 3D, set in 1940s Germany, where you play as Hobo Guy, a lone American drifter on a mission to rescue his dog from the Nazis, navigating 13 handcrafted levels that range from bunkers and castles to deserts and snowy valleys. If it wasn't clear from the title, this is, of course, drawing upon Wolfenstein 3D but with modern flourishes, since the fast-paced shooting action is enhanced with things like ragdoll physics. Levels are constructed with secrets, keys, and breakable objects, encouraging exploration to uncover treasure and hidden supplies. You also have a loyal rat companion which can distract enemies after you throw it at their faces, resulting in intense combat which emphasizes positioning and momentum rather than the slow pace of a cover-focused system. Also, this will be completely free, which is admirable work, so certainly give this a shot. Giga Sword is a 2D action puzzle Metroidvania set in a crumbling tower where a hero wields a massive sword whose weight alters movement, combat, and puzzle solving, having to fight to reach the top to recover the God Crystal within. Core mechanics combine hack-and-slash combat with traversal challenges, since the sword is used to unlock doors, depress pressure plates, and to break blocks, but also used to slash enemies, where weapon weight will be a factor. It is a Metroidvania, so there is non-linear exploration, eventually gaining special abilities like grappling hooks, crawling sparks, and thunderbolts in order to access new areas. The pixel art is absolutely gorgeous as well, having some impressive, intricately detailed boss designs shown off, and has been in development for a little while, signing with a publisher not too long ago, and participating in this festival is a good sign that it should be close to release. A 2D action puzzle game of interest is Motion Wreck, which is set in a dystopian world overrun by machines, having the main mechanic of being able to record your character, which is then used to traverse stages and solve puzzles. Your own movement trajectories, whether it be walking, jumping, or even complex sequences involving environmental elements, can be recorded and replayed even in reverse, which can then be used to reach otherwise inaccessible areas. Each level is crafted around these mechanics, requiring you to invent movement paths that interact with stage-specific gimmicks, and as puzzle games tend to do, it will escalate in terms of difficulty and variety of puzzles thrown at you as you go along. I love the minimalist 1-bit pixel art with occasional splashes of colour, and will be a thinky game worth a play. Geno Kids is a fast-paced hack-and-slash action game where you control a 4-member rock band battling an alien invasion, switching between characters instantly during combat. Combat mechanics emphasizes fluid combos, timed dodge rolls and chaining attacks between members to maintain momentum, increasing in complexity and style since each character brings unique movesets from close-range punches to ranged attacks, having to alter your strategy to defeat waves of diverse enemies, prioritizing style points over brute force. As you fight your way through, you will unlock powerful abilities as well as activating Hyper Mode in combat for additional damage, with there being a letter grade scoring system to judge your performance, looking to have things in common with games like Devil May Cry, so if you're up for a third-person action title, this will certainly be of interest. From developer Powerhoof, best known for Crawl, comes The Drifter, a gorgeous pixel art point-and-click adventure game which blends pop thriller storytelling with intuitive puzzle designs and immersive dialogue. Our protagonist, Mick Carter, is a drifter who witnesses a murder and finds himself thrust into a conspiracy after surviving by regaining consciousness seconds before death. Exploration involves navigating hand-drawn pixel art environments, examining items, piecing together clues, and crafting improvised tools like Molotov cocktails. Puzzle solving is grounded and paced for investigation rather than trial and error, hopefully eliminating some of the frustrations that people have with the genre of inventory interactions, adapting contextually, avoiding the hassle of pixel hunting. The narrative unfolds through voice-over monologues and environmental storytelling inspired by Stephen King and John Carpenter, looking like quite the interesting entry in this genre and given the pedigree should be great. A fascinating looking first-person title is Davy X Jones, telling the tale of legendary pirate captain Davy Jones in a surreal underworld called The Locker, where you control his headless body with the talking skull acting as your companion on this adventure of revenge and redemption. In addition to first-person shooting, there's also sword combat and a grappling hook as you explore open, floating island maps populated by cursed pirate enemies and monstrous bosses. Recover stolen artifacts, manage your arsenal, and perform dynamic combos against reviving foes. Defeated enemies drop essence that fuses into loot chests, but opening them also summons dangerous fiends, adding a risk-reward layer to every battle. You have your own vessel in the form of a living ship whale, which acts as your mobile base, with your CPU-controlled crew members helping to sail the ship or to operate cannons while you're out exploring and run into danger. The main antagonist is Blackbeard, where you're attempting to dismantle his empire, with all the classic expected features of a pirate game, including the presence of a kraken looking very good and will be one to try. We finally have the release date confirmation for Everdeep Aurora, an exploration platformer with some amount of Metroidvania influence, where you play as a feline child descending into an underground world known as the Everdeep in search of her mother. It plays and controls like a 2D platformer, but critically, you have an upgradable drill to make your way through bedrock, uncovering secret passages, NPCs with optional side quests, and collectible music tracks along the way. Elements like levers, ropes, and reflective surfaces allows you to access new zones or hidden chambers, with additional, more puzzle-based elements like towel switches, timed platforms, and light-based mechanics that will gate your progression. Do note that there is no combat in this game, and it is all exploration, but seems to have a cast of interesting characters, with digging games being all the rage, so it looks like a good time for release. Switching gears, a decidedly not cozy title is The Bondless, an asymmetric horror extraction shooter set on an island where teams of two loot, fight cultists and demons, then trigger rituals to either hunt or be hunted by players turned into demons, creating a tension-filled PvPvE loop that is equal parts horror and extraction FPS. The more horror slant does remind me of Hunt Showdown 1896, mixing in elements of the supernatural and the occult, but turning other players into demons is an interesting twist. Start in a cabin, gear up with scavenged weapons and black magic sigils, then race across the dark forest to activate gates using incense, triggering high-stakes ritual events that broadcast your location and invite chaos into the match. Looting is risky, since grabbing rare sigils will result in you becoming a walking beacon for the next few minutes, and if you survive the ritual, you can either hunt down rival players or scramble for extraction under time pressure. Game developers are convinced that the extraction game is the next big pot of gold to chase, and there have been a number of attempts at it, with this standing a good chance in my opinion to give the demo a try. Up and down the indie rollercoaster we go with Lost and Found Co., a cozy hidden object title where you operate a whimsical retrieval office led by a duck-turned-human intern helping townsfolk recover their lost items. The primary gameplay loop centers around exploring richly detailed hand-drawn scenes to locate hidden objects that match the request of your client, using subtle visual cues and contextual understanding to locate these items. Successfully completing these earns coins, which you use to customize your office, but looks to be similar to games like Hidden Through Time. But I have to say, the art here is top-notch and looks very pretty indeed. I did play a demo in the past with main items to find, along with optional objectives, having no real time pressure, and I can see myself playing it with my 4-year-old when this releases. Neon Abyss 2 is the sequel to a popular roguelite platformer, looking to be a bigger, better version of the first game, and is a cyber myth roguelite shooter with fast-paced run-and-gun combat, procedurally generated levels, and an expanded build system. Battle your way through the different zones with mobility and spatial awareness being key in combat. Get access to a wide variety of weapons, including range, melee, and elemental, as well as active items called fiefs and companions known as hegemons, allowing for deep synergies and build customization. Item pickups are fully reviewed before use, reducing randomness and allowing you to craft a build with permanent unlocks between turns, such as higher tier weapons, expanded item pools, and new companion options. It will have up to 4-player co-op support, where teammates share item synergies and can coordinate their builds, with difficulty scaling dynamically based on player performance, and should be a great one of these. Death Howl is a turn-based Souls-like deck builder set in a spectral realm where a grieving hunter battles restless spirits to reclaim her lost son. There is a tile-based grid where you construct decks using cards crafted from gathered region-specific ingredients and equip shamanic totems that grant passive or active boosts. Each encounter challenges you to balance melee and range spell cards against spirit enemies and bosses, with resource drops used to craft new cards mid-run. Combat requires strategic placement and timing of actions to maximize synergies between cards and touches upon themes of grief and resilience. I was so happy when the fan-favourite title Moonlighter 2 The Endless Vault was announced, the follow-up to an action RPG dungeon crawler with a shopkeeping element, but abandons their previous pixel art style and takes things into 3D. Explore procedurally generated vault dungeons by night, battling enemies to collect relics, weapon and gear, then manage your own customizable shop by day, haggling prices with customers, setting up merchandise and investing profits back into the village. Combat offers a deeper 3D system, including melee and ranged weapons, dodge rolls and item recovery, while the shop side introduces roguelite modifiers and layout perks, which makes each shop run feel like a part of the loop rather than a break. Dungeon upgrades, randomized shop bonuses, relic properties, and relic-based inventory management creates run-to-run variation, with new facilities, gear options, and services being progressively unlocked as you upgrade the village, looking very good, so I'm excited. Glaciate is a Souls-like RPG set 65 million years in the future beneath ice-covered seas, where you play as a Twai, a bird-evolved species defending the Everwinter ecosystem. Of course, it is set underwater, so the additional degrees of freedom might prove interesting for a Souls-like, where you're using melee attacks, ranged attacks, and elemental abilities tied to heat and cold control. You assemble and customize ability loadouts by combining active skills with passive enhancements, choosing and tweaking it to fit your playstyle. Explore varied subglacial biomes, from a bioluminescent fish forest to gravity-altered ruins. The massive underwater aquatic enemies do also look like a terror, being of note for how different it is, so if you're curious about how this controls, give it a try. Easy Delivery Co. is a low-poly driving simulation title which might have some creepy elements set in a snow-bound mountain town where you play as a delivery driver responsible for transporting packages under severe weather conditions and budget constraints. Driving mechanics prioritize vehicle handling over icy and rough roads, with speed and skid control affecting delivery efficiency and fuel consumption. Manage limited resources, including gasoline and energy, while making stops at client locations where dialogue and environmental clues reveal more about the town's hidden narrative. The core loop involves route planning, adjusting for time and fuel costs, and knowing when to rush deliveries and when to conserve energy. Interestingly, there will also be a local split-screen race mode for competitive play, but what a visual style this has, which really made an impression. The publisher of Balatro signed Voidbreaker, which immediately makes it of interest, a roguelite first-person shooter focused on fast-paced movement and customizable combat. Fight your way through arenas filled with hostile machines while manipulating momentum with sprinting, sliding, and dash maneuvers. The core feature is an extensive weapon modding system that allows for endless combinations of guns and attachments during each run, generating synergies that define your playstyle. Destructible environments enable tactical destruction of cover and the creative creation of a path through, with death ending a run, but permanent currency allows you to unlock weapon mods, upgrade your stats, and gain passive upgrades looking fast-paced and oh so good. One of the prettiest Metroidvanias in development is Neo Memories in Orbit, set aboard the Vessel, a derelict spaceship overtaken by malfunctioning machines and biological overgrowth. You control Mio, an android exploring the ship, while attempting to recover lost memories and to repair dormant robots. Traversal abilities include wall clinging, air gliding, grappling, and clone deployment, which enable you to get to previously inaccessible locations, mixed in nicely with the combat, which requires dodging, projectile control, and ability combos. Story elements are delivered through exploration, recovered data, and reactivated support units known as pearls, which gradually reveal the vessel's history and Mio's role within it, looking like a well-made one of these with a very pretty art style. From the original developers of Patapon comes Ratatan, a rhythm-driven roguelite side-scrolling strategy game where you command a marching band of Ratatans using timed beat inputs to direct movement, attacks, and special abilities as you battle waves of enemies. Levels are procedurally generated and support up to 100 units on screen, creating dynamic, large-scale battles that test your rhythm, precision, and tactical positioning. You input commands in sync with the beat to tell your Ratatans to advance, defend, or perform musical instrument attacks, with each wave dropping new weapons, power-ups, or companions called Kobans. Accuracy is rewarded, since combos fill a fever meter that unleashes crowd-clearing attacks. Between battles, there is a hub area named Rataport that allows you to trade with merchants and equip new gear before launching into new runs, looking awesome and should have great music where you don't see a rhythm roguelite every day, which makes this special. Ninja Gaiden Reachbound uses a storied IP but is from a technically independent developer, The Game Kitchen, best known for the Blasphemous series, but this is not a Metroidvania, but rather a side-scrolling 2D action platformer with fantastic art. It is built around precise movement, fast combat, and dual character mechanics where you control Kenji and Komori, swapping between the two on the fly or using their fusion ability to clear combat and platforming challenges. The two characters are different, with Kenji wielding a katana while Komori uses kunai, also having different special abilities. You need to time your dashes, slashes, and projectile reflections, also having a combo system with boss and enemy encounters designed around pattern recognition, similar to classic titles. I love the pixel art here, expected given that it is this developer, with the game also having a release date and will be out very soon. One of the biggest announcements from this summer game showcase season is the release date confirmation of Nina the Hollower, a top-down action-adventure game from the creators of Shovel Knight. Given how Shovel Knight has become ubiquitous with indie games, their next release will certainly be of interest, appearing to have some Castlevania influence due to the whip that Nina uses, but plays more like a classic 2D Zelda game. Of course, there are different mechanics and flourishes, like the ability to burrow underground for short periods of time, to avoid attacks, access hidden paths, or to pass through hazards, where the action-adventure game seems to be in vogue right now, with it having a Halloween release, so do certainly get hands-on. Watch this video for more action-adventure games.